Hello there. This video follows on from the sketching graphs video, where I introduced the general tactics you need to use to sketch any graph. So we're going to start with this one, with the first step, which was to find the y-intercept, and that's by saying x equals 0. And that's always the first starting point. It'll be exactly the same for our quadratic on the right. So to find the y-intercept, x equals 0. If you substitute that in, you end up with 2 times 0 plus 1. So the y-intercept is 1. If we start to sketch our graph, let's put a couple of axes at the bottom. That means that our y-intercept can be there at 1. Continuing on, if we go for 2, we've got where it crosses the x-axis, which is when y is 0. So in this case, 0 equals 2x plus 1. If we rearrange that by subtracting 1 and then dividing by 2, we discover that our x crossing point is negative a half. And this one is our linear graph, so you can just join them up like that. And that will be sufficient for a sketch of that particular graph. For our quadratic here, when x is 0, that means our y-intercept will be minus 12, because we've got 0, minus 12. For our solutions, or x-intercepts, we make y equals 0, and that means we've got 0 equals x squared minus x minus 12. Now, if you're familiar with quadratics, you should recognize that we can factorize this one. If you're not sure what I mean by that, then have a search for another video on factorizing and then pop back when you're ready. Factorizing means we can put it into 2 brackets. If it can't factorize, you can always use the quadratic formula to solve it. And if you have done it correctly, you should get this. Now that means we've got 2 things multiplied together that give 0. So either x must be 4 to make the first bracket 0, or x must be negative 3 to make the second bracket 0. I'm now going to find one minimum point because it's a quadratic by completing the square. So if I halve the x coefficient, again, if you're not familiar with completing the square, I do have some videos on that as well, which you can have a look at in order to make sure you understand where this is coming from. If we take away 0.5 squared and then take away the 12, that's what we get when we complete the square, which means that the minimum is at the point 0.5, because that will make the bracket 0, and then if the bracket is 0, we'll be left with 12.25. Now all that's left to do is just sketch that. So if we put those points on, first of all we've got y equals negative 12 as our y-intercept when x was 0. We've then got x equals 4 and x equals minus 3. And we also know that the minimum is at 0.5 and then negative 12.5. I'll just move that out of the way so I can write it in. Which means we've got a minimum about here, which is 0.5 and then negative 12.25, which means my curve, I'll try my best to draw it as well as I can, is going to come down through negative 3, reach its lowest point there and go back up. And there's your sketch. You need to always know where to find the x and y crossing points. That's very important. Minimums can be a bit more tricky to find, but if you go back and recap completing the square, I'm sure you'll be fine. Hopefully that helped. Let me know how you got on.